So it's my pleasure, as always, to introduce the founder and current leader of the Breakfast Club in New Jersey, Frank Kovacs.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everybody. I wanted to thank you all for joining the Breakfast Club meeting today. The Breakfast Club has now been in existence for over 20 years. We went and we founded the group after the 9/11 tragedy to help the people that lost their jobs due to the tragedy. Over the years, we've kept it going to help out with the financial and economic times that the country's gone through, and now currently the pandemic. We've done everything we can through Pay It Forward volunteers to try and really break down the job search process, come up with best practices, and put them forth in such a way that they're easy to follow and apply by the members. The real other benefit of the Breakfast Club is that we have all of our members in a highly concentrated geography of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, for the most part. With that, and the fact that our profile of members is normally people that have been working 20 years with multiple employers, it adds to an ability to have a network that you could tap into, where for most of the companies you could target in the area, either somebody works there now, used to work there, or knows somebody at the company. And that's really, what we've done with using technology, be it LinkedIn, Meetup, Facebook, and we used to use Yahoo Groups until recently. Ken Morris was very kind as a member early on to set up the Breakfast Club on Yahoo Groups. As many of you that belong to this group and other groups may have heard, Yahoo Groups is being retired as of 12/15. So two of our members, Haresh Kaswani and Brian Mecca, have done a lot of work over the last month to establish the group on groups.io. You should have received a message to join the new group. That will be our principal communication vehicle for the Breakfast Club in New Jersey going forward. It's very important that you join so that you could be plugged into all of our communications. And as that is our principal communication vehicle, it's really important that you use it for several things. Number one, if you're new to job search or returning to it, you use it by putting your elevator pitch in writing out to all the members of the group. So one easy way is just to put together an email message, send it to the email address for the group, which is the Breakfast Club NJ at groups.io, and it goes out to all of our members. A lot of our members come back and continue to be involved and participate, even post their landing. Many are setting C-level executives. So this helps in getting you in front of them as a potential candidate, and they're more apt to lend a hand and reach out to you, especially if they have an opening and your credentials and skill sets a match for needs that they may have. The other thing is to target companies. As you're out there targeting a company, you can go into our LinkedIn group, which is a hidden group that you should have received a invite to join from Haresh Kaswani. So you reach out, and if you see somebody that is at that potential employer that you're targeting, you reach out to them to talk about the company, because many times the structure of the jobs, the job titles are different from company to company. You want to make sure that you're targeting it effectively. You want to understand what their culture is like, so you're targeting a firm that is consistent with what you're looking for, and then sometimes you can even get a recommendation right into the hiring manager, which is the single item that greatly improves your probability of success in your candidacy for a job. And then one of the final things is, as our members land, if you could kindly put a message out to the entire group of, what worked for you, what may have been the missing link, that once you applied it, it helped you land, that gives hopes to all those that are in transition, and it may be that what you learned in your process is helpful to them as well. We hope very soon, especially with these vaccines coming out, that, hopefully we could return to in-person meetings, not too far down the line. But given the volume of how many people there are in the U.S. and how long it will take to get those vaccinations in place, and the fact that they're double vaccinations that take some time, then we'll have to wait to see and ensure that the effectiveness of it in controlling the spread of the virus. So for now, in the foreseeable future, we'll remain in this video conference mode, but we do our best to leverage this medium and this platform in order to help people. For many, which is even probably the most trying time, when I look at the volumes of people that are out of jobs or underemployed during the pandemic. So know that the Breakfast Club is here to help you. We've been doing so for 20 years. We've got a lot of great volunteers that help out. I will now pass it over to Jerry Payton. Jerry, along with David, who's our moderator this morning, run our presentation group for the Breakfast Club. They do an excellent job. And I have a strong affinity for today's speaker. So I'm confident that you'll all enjoy it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jerry.
Thank you, Frank. Yes, today, good morning, everybody. I want to mention that today we have an excellent speaker, as we always do, and we're giving a very valuable presentation that should help you all from a job search, or even if you're not searching for a job, something that can help you brand yourself, which is a very large part of finding a job. And at this point, let me introduce him. Mark Beal is a 30-year marketing veteran, having developed and executed integrated marketing campaigns for leading companies and brands around such major sports and entertainment platforms as the Olympic Games, Super Bowl, and the Rolling Stones. Mark is a professor of public relations at Rutgers University. He focuses much of his time helping job seekers of all ages, ranging from college students to senior executives, develop and market their personal brand to strengthen their strategic prospecting approach to securing their next job. Mark is a co-author of Career in Transition, 101 Lessons to Achieve Job Search Success. I'd now like to introduce Mark.
Jerry, thank you very much. It's great to hear. First of all, Frank, it's great to hear your voice. I know you've been so busy. I've been so busy. We haven't had a chance to catch up lately. So great to hear your voice again. Great to see so many familiar faces on the monitor here, even though we've all been apart. It's tremendous to see so many. And I know there's so many, job search experts on this line this morning that I may not present too many new things. But when I see George and I see Alex and I see David and Frank and so many others, I'm just honored to be able to be part of this group this morning, hopefully share at least a couple of insights that might help a few people out there. If you're seeing that first slide, it says, again, you are the chief marketing officer of your personal brand and job search. I believe now more than ever, all of us, no matter what industry, no matter what profession, as Frank said, no matter what your targets are, marketing is playing a more critical, more crucial role in the job search. Everything that is discussed week in, week out on these sessions are critically important, from the technology that's now being used to all the other elements of the job search. But I truly believe, based on, again, the current state of affairs, the limited number of openings, although each week I'm seeing more and more openings, I'm helping more and more people secure jobs as each week passes. The amount of competition for those limited openings, I truly believe that marketing, and I'll explain that in this presentation, marketing of your personal brand narrative, your storytelling is more important than ever as part of the job search. And to me, it's the difference between, and I use this term, so to speak, winning the job securing that next position. So I truly believe this. I know I've said it before in past presentations, but at the end of the day, whether your focus is IT, whether your focus is finance, whether your focus is project management, I really believe that at the end of the day, you are the CMO of your brand. You're the CMO of your story. You're the CMO of your storytelling, and you've got to leverage every possible asset within your marketing mix to have the best opportunity to not only secure the interview, but also, again, win the job. And so I'll hit on a whole bunch of that today as we go through this presentation. As Frank said, Frank and I had a great time collaborating on a book, Career in Transition, 101 Lessons to Achieve Job Success. And a portion of that book, was focused on marketing. And so I'll talk about some of those elements today. And as Jerry said, and I'll just make this very quickly, yes, I currently teach marketing and public relations at Rutgers University, but for 25 plus years, even now, consulting with Fortune 100 corporations, I've been involved with marketing, public relations, social media, content. In those cases, I'm doing it on behalf of the corporations, on behalf of the brands, whether that's, Taco Bell, Capital One, JP Morgan Chase, Nike, Procter & Gamble, or another brand. But to me, a lot of those things that we do for brands apply for each and every one of us in our personal brand. And so those are the things I'm going to try to bring to light today. Jerry made a reference to something I just want to call out. He talked about that I do try to help, or I am helping people of all ages, from those who are in college, graduating college, and have been in the workforce for 20, 30 years. I will tell you that since this pandemic hit, the greatest anxiety of college students, because this pandemic has hurt during their most formative years, right? We've all been impacted. Of course we have. But when we think about college students, and specifically, what I call Generation Z, this has happened during their most formative years, right? High school, college, classes have been moved remotely, internships have been completely canceled. Members of the class of 2020 still seeking jobs now 5, 6, 7 months after graduation. So I've spent much of my time, almost all of my time over the past 7 months, immersed with Generation Z in helping them secure that next internship, secure that next job. And I'll weave some of those stories in. I was just on the phone Wednesday, helping two graduates prepare for job interviews yesterday. These were job interviews where I did have connections. I was able to get them at least into the mix, and they made it into the final round. And then I was helping both of them prepare for that final critical interview where they were competing against 2 or 3 other candidates. So even though these are recent graduates, a lot of the things I talk about today, I think will apply. The good news I will tell you is that over the last week, 2, 3, and 4, I've collaborated with and helped more young professionals secure jobs, and I think I've done over the past 4 months, meaning few more opportunities are out there, or I should say, not a few more. I'm hearing about a lot more opportunities. I'm seeing conversion. I'm seeing candidates go from sitting on the sidelines to getting that job. And I would say I'm seeing more of that in the past 4 weeks than definitely I've seen in the past 4 months. So that gives me some hope. That gives me some promise that maybe we're on a upward trajectory here, and that's going to apply to all industries, all categories, and all levels of experience. So this as well as I do, but this was a story I pulled from just a week ago, right? Jobless claims hit pandemic era low as hiring continues even with rising COVID. Yeah, that's true. But as Frank said, and Frank said so well, we are still in a dismal job market, right? We are still an incredibly poor job market. So while some of these headlines may seem like, positive, I believe the word I used was promising, right? I do think there are some promising indications. The most important ones to me are the ones of the individuals who I've been helping, volunteering my time with, who are calling saying, I got the job. In fact, right before I went to bed last night at 10 o'clock, I got an email from a third student who I was helping this week. And the email was, I just want to let you know, I secured the job. This was at 10 o'clock last night. I was over the moon because this, again, is a student who's been out of work since May. and this is her first full-time job out of school, and it's with one of the top 5 public relations agencies in the world. So that, to me, again, more than this headline, is gives me hope, gives me optimism that, again, at least one more individual, one more candidate secured that next job. Way back when, in February or March, I did an interview with a media outlet, and they asked me, they said, give us 5 reasons to be hopeful. So this is back in, as soon as the pandemic hit, we'll say first, second week of March. You know, I still believe in a lot of these things. I may have been off a little bit, maybe on my timing, but I just want to hit those, especially for those who are listening and are currently proactively seeking that next opportunity. And as we cover off in the book, you know, there's good days and there are bad days. There's good days and there's bad moments, right? There's a lot of reasons to be down and pessimist and negative, but hopefully there are some reasons for hope. So these are my 5 reasons for hope. 1, I do believe, and I'm not sure when, but I do believe there will be, you know, rehiring, and hopefully that rehiring will start in a massive way in 2021. Like I said, I am starting over the last 4 weeks, starting to see it, starting to see it firsthand, starting to get those phone calls and emails from people I've been helping who are saying, I got the job. So I'm seeing those as proof points. Maybe they're not hundreds or thousands of proof points, but to me, every single one is an indication that there was a job opening, there was a competition for that job opening, and this individual who I was able to help at least a little bit used marketing as a way to get that job. 2, as Frank and others talk about all the time, all the time, the workplace, as we know it, is transforming, right? I'll give you 2 quick examples. I have 2 veteran marketers, when I say veteran, 10 years or so, both living in New Jersey, who both were laid off during the pandemic, early in the pandemic in March. Both were out of work from about March through maybe September. And there's an agency that's a really good agency out of San Francisco, and it's an agency that has been around for a number of years, but it was an agency that was built on the remote model. They never had a physical office space. They had a great philosophy that, you know, why spend all that money in rent? Let's figure a way to give that money back to our employees, whether in retirement benefits or other way, or salary or other ways. Anyway, as I began to learn more about this agency and understood this agency was always remote, always virtual, I reached out to these 2, like I said, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year executives in marketing. And I said, guys, there's a really good agency in San Francisco. Of course, it's not on your radar. Why would it be on your radar? You both are based in New Jersey. You're looking at jobs in New York, New Jersey. I said, I think we should make that target number 1. Frank talked about targets. I'm going to talk about targets in a few minutes. I think we should make that target number 1. I think we should go heavy and aggressively after that agency. Why? Because all their employees are based all over the United States. They always have been. This isn't something new for them. Well, the good news is, in short order, that the first executive, who's almost 10 years in, within about 3 weeks of making that target number 1, he secured his full-time role at that agency. 3 weeks. We made it the target. We identified jobs they had. We got aggressive together. We started reaching out to CMOs and CEOs and other people at that agency. And within 3 weeks, he was hired. The second executive was a really unique background. After high school, she went into the Army for a number of years, then went to college, didn't graduate with her undergraduate degree till she was 30, then went into graduate school, graduated with that when she was 32. So at the age of 32, other than the Army and some internships, she actually never had kind of a traditional first full-time job. So it's a little bit maybe of a challenge, at least she saw it as a challenge, that here I am at 32. Good news is I've got an undergraduate degree, I've got a graduate degree, I was in the Army, I served my country, I've got some decent internships, but I actually don't really have a full-time relevant job. I said, let's not worry about that. I said, let's go back to this same company in San Francisco, who's remote, who's virtual, and let's see if we can apply the same approach. And we did exactly that. And about 4 weeks after we applied that approach, she was then hired and secured her first ever full-time job, aside from, again, being in the Army. You know I make these things sound easy, and they're not, but those are just 2 instances of the idea of the workplace is transforming, right? We know this, we see it, we understand it, And I guess my only lesson there, my only message there, and I'll talk about it when we get to targets, is that pool of targets that Frank talked about, that pool of prospects, may be a little bit bigger now because of the way the workplace has transformed. I spent quality time on the phone yesterday with the CEO of an agency that for 20 years has been, for lack of a better word, remote, virtual. She set up her agency after leaving GlaxoSmithKline 20 years ago and created a virtual marketing agency where she has employees all around the country. And I wanted to pick her brain and understand how things have changed during this pandemic and how they have not for her. And she said, to be honest with you, she goes, I was ahead of my time. She goes, nothing's changed here. We've been full speed ahead. We continue to secure candidates from around the country because we don't have the restrictions of having to report to a certain building. And she goes, my message to those who are out there looking is to give thought to that, open it up a little bit more, right? More and more jobs because of this workplace transformation are remote, are virtual. You don't necessarily need to be in the same city or same town where the job is located. So to me, that's a second reason for hope. Number three, as Frank talks about all the time, is just this idea of, reskilling for future jobs, future roles, So as we're sitting here, so to speak, if we're on the sidelines, what can we do? Where can we invest our time? Can we go ahead and perhaps get a certification in, I don't know, search engine optimization, if that makes sense for your position? Or can we get some sort of other certification? So I think that's, again, another reason for hope. While we're here prospecting, while we're here marketing ourselves, while we're here navigating the job market, how can we reskill, upskill, gain more skills for our potential next job down the road? I truly believe, and I think the Breakfast Club of New Jersey is an incredible example of this. I truly believe that this pandemic has created a greater community of collaboration. And I think, again, the Breakfast Club of New Jersey to me is example number one. For those who are on this call this morning, who this is the first time you've ever joined this meeting, or you're relatively new to this group, to me, groups like this and all the other incredible groups in New Jersey, whether in Princeton or Somerville or anywhere else, they are communities of collaboration. They are people who truly want to help each other. They're people who want to provide advice, insight, support, assistance. And I think those communities are more powerful, more passionate, more supportive, more collaborative than they were pre-pandemic. Frank talked about how the Breakfast Club of New Jersey started post 9/11 and has helped thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people secure that next job. Well, I believe the Breakfast Club of New Jersey and other groups are more supportive, more collaborative, more wanting, willing, able to help all those. So again, if you're new to the Breakfast Club New Jersey, if you've just joined for the first time, this to me is a huge reason for hope. And I think that collaboration obviously goes beyond great organizations like the Breakfast Club New Jersey, but I truly believe there are communities now where people are looking to help. And then last but not least, on my 5 reasons to be hopeful, I think all of us who are employed, who are working, who will continue to work during this pandemic, I think every single one of us has taken a look and said, man, we're fortunate. We are really in a spot where we are just, thanking our lucky stars that we continue to work. And I think because of that, we want to help even more. We want to assist even more. I tell people all the time, I'm like, you know what? As more and more and more of us are still working from home, especially decision makers, executives, people who used to be on planes and traveling and commuting and busy. Well, guess what? All those hours that they used to travel and commute and do all those things, they got those hours back now. For 27 years, I was on a bus 5 hours a day going to New York to work. I got those 5 hours back. I use those 5 hours now to help other people, to help them with their job search, to help them prepare their resume, to help them network. And I think every other person out there, hopefully, has that same attitude. I really do believe they do. And you know what? If they don't, well, they're not going to be helped you anyway. So don't spend any time there. But I think 99.9% of the people who are full-time, who are employed, who continue to work, are very, very thankful and grateful and realize that I got time now. I need to help. I need to have that phone call with that person that maybe 9 months ago I was too busy to have, or I thought I was too busy. So again, for those out there who are seeking jobs, searching for jobs, those are my 5 reasons that I said back in March, and I still believe everyone. In fact, hopefully you can tell from the tone of my voice, I'm actually more passionate now than I probably was back in March about those, especially when it comes to points 4 and points 5. So for those on the line who've heard me speak before, you've heard me say this more than once, but it's more true than ever, as I mentioned, especially in the competitive market we're in. Starting today, if you're on your job search, think and act like a marketing executive. If you've never done marketing in your life, start today. And we're going to take you through, I believe, 5 or 6 steps on how you should approach that, how I would approach that, right? So you are the chief marketing officer of your career journey. You are the chief marketing officer of your personal brand. You're the chief marketing officer of your brand narrative and your storytelling. Nobody else, not one other person. Everybody who's on this line today are allies in that. They are playing a role in that. They are contributing. They are assisting. They are supporting. As I said, they're part of your community of collaboration. But at the end of the day, there's only one person who's the chief marketing officer of your brand, and that's you. Nobody else. You can seek counsel, you can seek advice, and you should, from all the great people who are on this call today. But there's only one person that is leading the marketing for your job search, and that's you. So again, if you haven't thought of that way before today, just think about that. Make that your mindset each and every day as you proceed. Every day as you wake up, every day as you go to sleep at night. How did I market my brand today? And I'll take you through some steps. I love, when I present, I always talk about the idea that every morning, every night, there's only one person that you kind of owe this search to. There's only one person that can kind of make those final decisions on how you're going to market yourself, who are you going to target, who are you going to prospect. Again, all of us can help, all of us will support, we want to support. But there's only one person, and that's the person you look at in the mirror every single day, you. Nobody else. When you look in that mirror, you ultimately are the chief marketing officer. You are ultimately the final decision maker. You're ultimately the one who decides how proactive you're going to be in your search, how proactive you're going to be, and as Frank said, identifying and ranking targets and then going and prospecting those targets. It's you. It's me. It's all of us, right? That's the only one at the end of the day. We've got that community behind us. We don't see that community in that mirror, but we've got an incredible army, an incredible community of people who are helping, want to help, and people we don't even know yet today who are going to help next week and the week after and the week after. But at the end of the day, there's only one person that you look at in that mirror, that one person who's going to make all those decisions, how proactive I want to be, how creative I want to get, right? All those things. It's you. Okay. So I know I said it earlier, but every single one of us, whether we thought about this or not, is a personal brand, is a brand like Nike and Apple. Yes. If you never thought that way, start thinking that way today. You are a brand. You are a brand like Tom Brady and Serena Williams, right? In fact, look at Serena Williams' quote there. I work on my brand all day from my computer. When Serena Williams is not on the tennis court, she's building her brand. I've done many deals with Serena Williams, many endorsement deals for my clients with Serena Williams. She's a great example of someone, just follow what she does on Instagram. Follow what she does on her own media platforms, which I'm going to talk about in a second, which we all have, but we may not be leveraging fully. So if you've never thought of it this way, just like Tom Brady, just like the guy who's won more Super Bowls than any other quarterback in the NFL, you are a brand. You have a brand. You now need to develop that brand even further. You need to determine what comprises that brand. All those things. So again, if you haven't thought of this way before, starting today, think about you, your brand, what comprises your brand, and where you want to take your brand. And I'll get into this over the next several slides, but every single thing you do, from your elevator speech today during the Breakfast Club of New Jersey meeting, to what you tweet, to what you post on LinkedIn, to what you feature on your resume, to what you might communicate in a blog or a podcast, that all comprises your brand. That all makes up your brand. Maybe it's not on a huge stage like the Super Bowl or the US Open, but it is still your brand. You own it. You determine the direction it takes. You determine the message it puts out there, the communication it puts out there. You determine the thought leadership that's coming out of your brand to try to reach prospects and influencers. So again, just something else to think about if you've never thought that way before. Every single one of us has a personal brand. We own our brand. It's up to us now to fully leverage that brand and communicate that brand and network that brand and share that brand and amplify that brand. So I'm just going to take us through, I believe, about 5 or 6 steps here. So if we have a brand, and again, some of what I'll present, you've probably heard from people like Alex and George and David and Frank and many, many others, but I'm all putting this in the context of 2 things. You are the chief marketing officer of your journey, and you own your brand, all right? So that's the context these are coming under, right? So first, if you own your brand, if you have a brand, if you've got a personal brand, again, LeBron James, Tom Brady, Serena Williams, well, what is the brand vision, right? Where do you want to take your brand? What are the aspirations? Where do you want to go? What is success for your brand? If success is, I just need to get that next job, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what is the vision for your brand, right? Where is this brand a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, right? So if we're gonna agree or align with the idea that, yeah, I am a brand, I own my brand, I need to market my brand, I'm the chief marketer of my brand, well, I've got to create a vision for my brand too. And it doesn't have to be a 20-year vision at this point, because right now the biggest and most important thing for your brand is to secure that next opportunity. But we do have to have some sort of vision for the brand, where we want to take the brand, where we want to bring to deliver value, where this brand can deliver value and impact, all those kinds of things. So you want to start just giving thought to that. Where can I take my brand? Where do I want to take my brand? What industries do I want to take my brand to? As Frank said, what targets and prospects do I want to take this brand? That vision. And I'll provide more proof points on that in a second. But just give thought to that. Just give thought to that. So if starting today, I never thought about this before, I'd probably grab a big poster board and I'd probably write on it, my brand, my name, my brand attributes, my values, my expertise, my experience, all those things. And then on a separate poster board, I kind of write vision at the top, and I kind of just start again, spitballing a little bit here, but where do I want this brand to go? Where do I want to take this brand? Who do I want to influence and inspire? Where do I want to bring impact and value? So again, just let that marinate for a moment. Number 2, and I know you talk about this all the time, but I've got SMART goals and SMART objectives in my brain because I just graded 100 personal brand marketing papers from my students at Rutgers University as part of one of my marketing courses where we study brands, Taco Bell, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Nike, and we study them every day. One of the assignments, though, is just as I stated, you are a brand. And one of the assignments that they have to complete over 5 weeks is they have to develop their own personal brand marketing strategy. And part of that marketing strategy, as we all know, is not just to develop random objectives or random goals, but really develop smart ones, right? Very specific, highly measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. And I'll share one that I shared with every single student when I graded those 100 papers, which took me a lot of time, and I gave each and every one of them an individual, personalized, customized email with detailed comments and notes about their personal brand, which took me hours and hours and hours to do. But the one thing that I put in everybody's personal brand marketing strategy response was not only to develop SMART goals, but I gave every single one of them a SMART goal because I didn't think it was, I didn't think there was enough value to saying develop them. I thought I had to give them proof and give them an example. And so I'll give that same example to everybody here today. So let's just say that there was somebody, I have many students who want to get into music, entertainment and music marketing. They all want to get into that business, entertainment and music marketing. Great. And so every one of them, when they put their goals or their objectives, they say, I want to secure a job by the time I graduate. Great. My response to that is, I understand that, I get that, but you need to develop a SMART way to get to that ultimate place, or at least ultimate place in the next 5 months. And so what I go back to them with is I say, here's a SMART way to do that. Starting January 1st, every single week, I am going to make a meaningful connection in music and entertainment marketing between now and at least graduation day in the entertainment and marketing industry. So what did I just do there? Well, first of all, I just built something that is much more specific than I want a job by the time I graduate, right? Yeah, by the time I graduate is time bound. I mean, graduation is May 15th, so it gives me a little bit of time now. But how am I measuring myself against that between now and May? I can't. There's no way to measure it until I get the job, right? So we've got to create other metrics for success leading up to the job, right? So based on that one SMART approach that I gave them, which is starting January 1, 2021, make one new meaningful connection in music and entertainment marketing every single week between now and when you get that job. Well, that's pretty darn specific, very specific, highly measurable. At the end of the week one, I either passed or I failed. And if I failed, that means in week 2, I need to double up and I need to make 2 meaningful connections in entertainment and music marketing, right? I think it's pretty achievable. Relevant, sorry. I use realistic when I use my R. I think it's pretty achievable and pretty realistic, but if it's not, that's fine too. Then make it, I'm gonna make 1 new meaningful connection every other week. That's 2 a month. And it's obviously time bound, right? If I stick to that once a week, that means between January 1 and graduation day, 5 months, that's 21, 22, 23 new connections, meaningful connections, meaningful. Difference between a connection and a meaningful connection, right? Well, that's a smart way to approach it. So just give thought to that, right? Give thought to that. Give thought, I guess the message here is give thought to how are you measuring not just your brand, but how are you measuring the journey you're taking with your brand to get to that next major, right, opportunity? And do I need to create some more metrics for success for me and my brand and my journey that ladder up to that ultimate objective? And I think that's the key here. You may have to just dig a little bit deeper and develop these kind of smart ways of developing some metrics so that you can measure progress, success, each and every week along the journey. Because if the only way to measure success is whether you got the job or not, it could take, as we all know very well, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months. But we want to have other metrics that we can measure on a weekly basis, on even a daily basis, perhaps. So anyway, I just thought that was timely and relevant because I just went through grading those 100 personal brand marketing strategies, and every single one I responded with kind of with that message specifically. Okay, so you have a brand. You've agreed. You've kind of hopefully nodded when I said yes, you are a brand, just like Tom and Serena and LeBron. You've got this, vision for the brand. You've started creating these metrics for success, right? Now you've got to just think about, what is my narrative? What is my storytelling? I love when I go to the Breakfast Club New Jersey meetings, and I know you're going to do that virtually here too, where everyone does their elevator pitch. Well, that brand narrative, that storytelling, your brand narrative is going to be a lot different than Tom Brady, a lot different than Serena Williams, but you need to, again, take a big step back and figure out what is my story. And once you figure out your story, and the story is about past, present, future, as far as I'm concerned, you want to figure out, now, how do I tell that story in a 15 or 20-second elevator pitch at the Breakfast Club in New Jersey meeting? And how do I tell it in an hour-long interview when I go for a formal interview, and every single thing in between, right? And so I believe your story is comprised of key successes in your past, key case studies, things that you can point to, proof points that prove, yes, I can deliver incredible value to your organization. I can deliver business impact to your organization. In fact, here's proof point number one. And so it's as they say, almost on poster board, it's mapping those out and figuring out which are the most impactful, which are the most compelling, which are the most engaging. You may have 50 of them, but you can't get across 50, especially in an elevator pitch, but even in a 1-hour meeting, right? So as we like to say in the marketing business, what are those 3 key messages? Those 3 messages you're going to hit over and over and over and over and over again. Because as we all know, whether it's a formal interview, whether it's a Zoom interview, whether it's in person, whether you're in front of a 5-person panel, none of us can remember 9 different messages or 10 different messages. But if you hit us with 3 and you hit it over and you hit it over, we're probably going to remember 1, if not 2, it may be all 3. But those 3 messages are the key messages to, again, your narrative, your storytelling, your experiences, your past, your present, your future. And so you just want to give thought to that. And you want to give thought to, again, your narrative in a way that, how does my narrative deliver value to this organization? Because as we all know, at the end of the day, nobody is hiring you just to hire you because you're a nice person. That may be a contributing factor. They're hiring you because you can bring value to their organization more than perhaps the other candidate, or at least they feel that, right? Value doesn't mean you're going to sell more widgets than the next person. Value can mean a lot of things. But at the end of the day, they're hiring you, me, anybody else here, because we believe this person can deliver value to organization that's going to contribute to business building, right? So you got to figure out what all that is, right? What's unique, what's different about maybe my narrative than anybody else? I'm not going to run through them all, guys, but I just, like I said, I love to use my students as examples. So this week alone, I have a student in her personal brand marketing strategy. She's a national champion powerlifter. She's 21 years old. She wants to get into pharmaceutical healthcare marketing. I wrote back to her and I said, do you realize that you're the only person who's going to interview for probably every job you're in for that's a national champion powerlifter at the age of 21? That is unique. That is different. If you've got the mindset, the dedication, the commitment to excellence, to train and sweat to become a national champion powerlifter, imagine what you can do for a pharmaceutical company. Her response was, I never thought of it that way. I just thought it was my hobby. I said, no, it's not. It may be your hobby, it may be your passion, but that's part of your narrative. Not one other person interviewing for any job at a pharmaceutical company is going to be able to say, oh no, by the way, I'm a national powerlifting champion at the age of 21. Because that national powerlifting championship stands for so much more than she can lift a lot of weight. To me, it stands for commitment, dedication, what I like to call unspectacular preparation, when no one else is watching her at 4 a.m. and she's lifting weights. If I'm hiring her in 2 seconds, because she has got the mindset to deliver value to our organization. That's just one of many, many, many examples that came through because the students went through the exercise of what kind of we're doing today, taking 4 or 5 weeks to map out their brand, what their brand's all about, what's unique about their brand. Every single student, and maybe they were just playing to my ego, hoping to get a good grade, at the very end said, wow, I never, first of all, knew I was a brand. I didn't realize that. Secondly, if I never went through this exercise, I never would have taken the time to understand my brand, understand what my brand's all about, and understand where I want to take my brand. I never would have understood the idea of research, identify, target, and rank prospects. So again, whether you're 21 or 51, to me, this is still highly relevant and applicable. I know there's folks like George and Alex and others who hit this a lot, but I'm going to just take it from a slightly different angle. In marketing, in business, in advertising, in public relations, when we're working with any brand, doesn't matter the brand, Nike, McDonald's, Taco Bell, we spend an inordinate amount of time talking about their owned media channels. You and I may not kind of talk about it that way, but at the end of the day, that's what we talk about in marketing, your owned media channels. There's an acronym in marketing called PASO: paid media, earned media, shared media, owned media. 10 to 12, 15 years ago, no brand really had owned media other than those who had websites, right? So since we're talking about your brand and marketing, I want to just throw this term at you. You want to delve deep into your owned media channels. You may call them your social media channels. You may just call them my LinkedIn. Yes, they are all the same. But I'm emphasizing the owned, not just because that's how we talk about in marketing, because you, at the end of the day, own those channels. You don't have to pay an ad to get on your own channels. You don't have to pitch an editor to get a story on your own channels. The reason we call them owned media, even when we're talking to big brands like Nike, is because Nike owns their LinkedIn channel, their Facebook channel, their Twitter channel, their Instagram channel, their TikTok channel, their podcast, their blog, their website. They own them just like you own them, just like your brand owns those channels. So why is that important? Well, because you can create as much content as you want and distribute as much content as you want on your channels. You are the publisher and editor-in-chief of your channels, nobody else, not one other person. There's a lot of great folks in this call that can give you advice and give you recommendations, but that's where it starts, right? You're the one who determines what kind of thought leadership do I want to put out there on LinkedIn. You're the one who determines, even on a channel like Facebook, and I know folks like Frank are big believers in Facebook, especially with when we get past Gen Z who thinks Facebook is just for their parents. You're the one who determines how much do I want to maybe share on Facebook. I've got a community of maybe friends out there, but you know what? Those friends actually do work at places. Those friends do have connections. So Facebook could be a really good owned media channel for me in a creative way to share my job search. And again, I say creative way because the same piece of content can't serve the same purpose on every channel, right? Not everybody on Facebook is going to want to hear about your search constantly or about your thought leadership in your industry, but folks on LinkedIn might. So again, if you haven't thought about this before today, you own your own media channels. You can create even more channels. I'm not telling you to go out there and start a podcast today, but you create even more channels, right? You can create a site that features all your successes, all your case studies, all your great past experiences, right? If you're not blogging, well, you don't necessarily need to learn how to go blog. You can create short form blogs on LinkedIn and then amplify those by, again, sharing and distributing those. Just like I do every single day when I'm presenting when I'm promoting my own brand. And nowadays that's really around Generation Z. First thing I do, as soon as I put something on LinkedIn, I then amplify and share it on Twitter and get it out there as well. So I'm taking a piece of content perhaps and sharing it in different channels. So again,
Mark?
Yes.
If I could add one thing. Also, as you're building your brand and using these channels, don't post anything that will be against your brand or tear it down.
Correct. Completely agree, Frank. Completely agree. And let's just hit on that while we're on this slide. All those things that are on your channels, again, as Frank said, positively or potentially negatively. And I think Frank brings up a great point. Why? Because when you get to that final 4 or 5 or 3 or 2 or 1, at some point they're going to say, hey, by the way, let's look at those channels. Let's see what he or she has been posting on LinkedIn. Let's see what he or she's been posting on Twitter. And again, there's a pro and a con to that. Frank just hit on the con. I'm going to talk about the pro. And I tell every one of my students this. So every one of my students who tells me they want to get into entertainment and music and television and film marketing, great. What kind of content are you putting out on LinkedIn regarding those industries? Because if I'm an employer, when I'm interviewing you in April and May and I think you're a serious candidate, I want to see a little bit of a consistent track record that you've been sharing industry news, or that you've had a little bit of a POV on industry news and you wrote a short piece on your LinkedIn page. I may also want to see that, as I've had many students do, maybe channels like Twitter, it's not personal at all, but it's all around the industry where you want to work. And you're consistently sharing industry news. Even if you're not producing any original content, you're sharing news. You're sharing news about the latest, Spotify deal, or you're sharing the latest news about some sort of entertainment initiative, right? So Frank brings up a good point there. Again, it goes both ways, but the key is that you do have these channels, you do own these channels. And so you, at the end of the day, again, are responsible for how proactive you want to be, how much you want to leverage those channels. But personally, I would be leveraging them in a positive way as much, as often as you can. Again, smartly, strategically, driving towards that vision, driving towards those targets as well. So I spent a little bit too much on there, but I just wanted to go into that, because when we sit down with any brand of any kind, we spend so much time on owned media. Because if you think about the other parts of those channels, paid, earned, and shared, right? I'm not going to hit them all, but paid media, I got to go out and buy advertising to get my message out there. I have to buy an ad. I have to buy space somewhere. I have to buy time somewhere. Earned media, I've got to convince somebody to write an article about me, to do a segment on me, to have me as a guest on a podcast. It's doable. It's very doable. There's a bunch of people on this call right now who are constantly getting covered by media and appearing on podcasts. It's great, but you gotta pitch an editor, a producer, a writer. Owned media, you control. You control every bit of it.
Excuse me, Mark.
Yes.
We have a question from Patricia.
Okay, Patricia.
What do you mean by don't talk about yourself?
I don't even know if I'm going so fast. I don't even know what. I don't even know if I said that. So I'm not sure what time.
It was on. It was on the prior slide.
Okay, let me go back. Thank you, Patricia. Appreciate it. Oh! You're taking from the image. I did not create that image, but
oh, okay.
I did not create the image, but I'll use that. But I'll give it to you anyway. So one of the things I'll tell brands all the time is, and I always told this to the brands in the pizza category, Pizza Hut and Papa John's, like, don't just promote yourself. Don't always promote you know, in the pizza case, you're always just promoting, buy 2 pizzas, $10, get a free soda. At the end of the day, your followers, your listeners are going to get kind of, turned off by all that. So what I'm saying is, share thought leadership, share industry news, right? It's not always about me, I'm the greatest, I'm the best, I'm all that, right? It's sharing thought leadership. And we all do it. I know we do, but it's real interesting column in Forbes today about this industry. Interesting quote here from so-and-so. I do that on Twitter just about every single day, where I'm sharing other people and I'm giving them attribution. But I'm doing so. I'll just put it, George. I'll put it in my world. So again, my other world, separate from teaching and marketing and all, is just this whole world of Generation Z. I got involved in Generation Z in 2017 and try to create and continue to try to evolve kind of an expertise in that area. I've written 2 books about it. I've written columns for major media about it, and I deliver 2 or 3 keynotes a week about it. This past Tuesday, I was asked to be the keynote speaker and deliver a speech on Generation Z to 475 sports business executives on the future of sports and Gen Z. So everything I do I talk about myself once in a while? Yeah, once in a while. Last week I was featured in the Washington Post. Hey, thanks Washington Post. Really appreciate you featuring in this column about Gen Z and sports. But more often, I'm sharing news and information and data and insights about Gen Z. Yesterday, there was a great research that came out from Morning Consult, who I just love their research. And it was about brands in 2020 who have with not the most loved brands, but basically have become brands of choice, brands of preference with Gen Z. I shared that on LinkedIn. I shared that on Twitter. Why? Because it's not my research, but it's showing that, again, I'm just sharing Gen Z research. So I think that's an example there where it's not every tweet, every post is, again, me, but it's about industries, it's about categories, it's about data, survey, research, stats, but it's coming from you. So it's showing that, wow, Patricia really has a pretty good understanding on the entertainment marketing industry. You see some of the stuff she's sharing? She's always sharing really insightful stuff about the industry, about brands, and so that's the point there, Patricia. Hopefully,
thank you for clarifying. I appreciate it.
Hey, Mark.
Yes,
George.
George.
Hi, Mark. The other thing I would add to this is think about this number 4, and I always like to use the word "what's your storyline," because even if somebody didn't look at your content, you want to in the interview say, "I've been covering this. If you want to see how I look at this space or how I've been learning about this space, here's the story, here's the theme I've been using," and you've given them something that's a takeaway post-interview.
I completely agree. Completely agree with you, George. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's hit the last couple of slides and then we'll wrap this up. So number 5, Frank, you hit this at the very beginning, and I know we talk about this all the time. We all talk about this, but if you haven't gone through this exercise, if you haven't done this yet, this is another one of those pieces of advice I give to all my students, right? It is really, I bring this back from my days where I led new business for my agency for many, many years. We were an agency of about 100 people, so we were not the size of our competition, which had 5,000, 4,000, 3,000, 2,000 employees. We were a small little guy in a big pond who no one had ever heard of. But like those big agencies, we wanted to do work with Coca-Cola. We wanted to do work with Procter & Gamble. And so the approach I took there, I apply it to the job search approach. And again, Frank talked about it earlier, the idea of targeting and prospecting. But if you haven't gone through this yet, take a step back, and instead of, again, only reacting to job postings that you're going to apply to, which is, again, that's a strategy, and that's fine. That should be one part. The second part, though, should be the proactive approach to targeting and prospecting. And so what I like to do is very simply, and I think in today's world, it's even different, because as I talked about at the onset, the idea of that there are more and more openings around the country that may not require you to physically be in the workspace. So now that pool of prospects may be opened up a little bit more than it was a year ago. But within your category, within your industry, within your state, your location, again, if it's about going to a physical place, research, identify, and rank 10, 15, 20, 25 targets. These are your prospects. These are your potential customers, if we're going to put this in a new business form, right? Research, identify, rank your targets, the companies that you are going to proactively prospect, companies you've heard good things about, companies that have been on your radar, companies that you've wanted to work with for years. And I think what's important here, and that's why I kind of swapped out some logos here. In the old days, I used to have big logos here, and people would say, well, I'm never going to work for Google. No, it can be a company that's 5 minutes down the road from you that maybe is a 20-person firm, a 20-person agency, or it could be a corporation too. That's fine as well, right? That's not what's really important here. The idea is taking the time to identify who am I going to prospect, who am I going to strategically target. And then this idea of ranking, I like to rank. So when I was leading new business, I always ranked our prospects. Now, really important here, because I know George or someone else might call me out on this, so I'll just clarify here real quick. I say 25, 20, 15. Obviously, the old quality over quantity. It's a lot more effective and efficient to focus on 10 prospects than 25. I get that. but I like to start a little bigger at about 20, 25, and then rank them. And so the idea of ranking is looking at this group of 20 to 25 and saying, yeah, okay, there's 20 to 25. These are companies I'm going to really have on my radar. I'm really going to figure out how I get a foot in the door. But if I'm going to be most effective, I really want to prioritize these. And so you want to prioritize 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And so how do you do that? And so what I always like to do was I'd look at this pool of 20 or so prospects, and then I'd say, okay, let me look at those. Where and who and how and what, where do I have the most connections with these prospects? Who do I know potentially on the inside? Who do I know potentially on the outside that's a vendor? Who do I know who used to work there and may still have connections? And all of a sudden, that plays into your ranking. At least it always played into my ranking. And so if all of a sudden I realized, man, I seem to have a lot of connections at Coca-Cola. I know 1 or 2 people that are on the inside. I know a couple of people that used to work there. I know a couple of groups that are actually agencies that are real good friends with. Maybe they become my number 1. And that could be part of it. Another reason might be, they're just great reviews about great place to work for. Another thing could be what exactly they're doing. You just heard from the CEO or CMO about maybe areas they're going into to innovate and transform the way they do business, and those areas fit your strengths. So it's all those kind of factors that fit into this idea of ranking. But the idea is that once you've kind of done the research, once you identified the prospects, rank them so that you start to prioritize your focus, because it's hard to focus day in and day out on 20 or 25. But if you can rank them, you can at least prioritize and say, okay, these 5, these 3, these 4, every single day, I'm going to figure a way to get in the door with these 3, 4, or 5 prospects. I'm going to leverage those people on the inside, people on the outside, people I don't even know yet today, but I'm going to truly leverage it. So that's why I go into this idea of you might have a pool of 20, but you really want to prioritize because you want to really put extra focus on maybe numbers 1 through 5, and maybe a little bit less focus on numbers 6 through 20, at least initially. So I really love this approach. It worked for me for years in new business. I'll tell you right now, and again, I still equate it to new business. Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, Capital One, Allstate, Nike, never heard of our agency ever. But once I took this approach, once I was able to get a toe in the door and then bust that door open and then get the call to say, hey, we've heard enough about you. We want to invite you to compete against 5, 6, 7 other agencies for a job here. It's the same approach that I think we can all take. And then last but not least, I've brought this up before. Now that you've done all these things, you now have the mindset that, yes, I am a brand. My brand consists of, again, past, present, future. I am the marketer of my brand. It's up to me at the end of the day to proactively and strategically and creatively market my brand with help from my friends. But at the end of the day, I'm really in charge of that brand. I know the vision for my brand. I know where I want to go. I've created these SMART goals that are very specific and measurable and time bound. I've developed my narrative. I understand my story that I can deliver in a 20-second elevator pitch or in a 2-hour interview. And I'm going to really leverage my own media channels and share thought leadership. And I've identified and ranked my prospects. Now you want to go out and get that army out there, that community of collaboration that I talked about, the people out there who want to help, who are eager to help, who say, hey, what can I do to help? Take them up on it, right? And the way to do that, and again, I'm sure there's a bunch of folks on this call who have fancier forms of this and fancier versions of this. I just call it my simple job search tool. It's real simple. If you were going to come meet with me, which I do all the time with folks, again, and helping them, the resume is great. It's good. It tells me where you've been. And it's needed, it's mandatory, it's required, right? Can't go anywhere without a resume. But more helpful to me, if we were sitting over a cup of coffee, is where do you want to go? Because if you came to if we have a cup of coffee tomorrow and you give me your resume and say, here's where I've been, and here's what I've done, and this is great, and I'm like, wow, this is darn impressive. My follow-up is going to be, though, how can I help you get to where you want to go? Who are the prospects and targets that Frank talked about? Because if you have 10 or 15 or 20, I bet maybe I know one, and if I can help you get into one of those, at least I've contributed. Because the last thing you want to do is have a cup of coffee with someone, share your resume at the end, shake hands, and everyone walks off. So, oh, that was a nice cup of coffee. but nothing has actually happened, right? We didn't move the ball down the field at all. So I like to use this tool a lot. Again, just a basic job search tool where it has some basic information, your name, your contact information, all those good things. But it also has the types of jobs, specifically titles that you're looking for. And I always use this example just because it's the industry I'm in. But you know, if you're a senior marketer, and I've had this happen more than once to me, you know, I've had a candidate who was looking, she goes, I only want to be a chief marketing officer and nothing else. That's the only job title I'll accept. I said, well, that's great. You've got the focus. The bad part of that is there ain't too many senior chief marketing officers. There's only one, as far as I know, for every company. So you've just limited, great focus, but you've just limited. That's the only job title. That's the only job title you're willing to take. Yes, it's the only job title. 2 years later, she's still looking for that title. Maybe though, if you broaden it a little bit, I'm interested in CMO jobs, EVP marketing, SVP marketing, marketing director, whatever, right? Okay, now we've opened it up a little bit. Okay, now I know the kinds of titles you're looking for. Then the last piece is, tell me those brands, those prospects, those targets. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you and I meet, or you meet with anyone in your group, ultimately, to me, the goal is that if you can get one person in that army of yours, that community of yours, to identify one company where they can at least get a foot, help you get a foot in the door, that is success. That is measurable progress. There's nobody in your army that's going to say, yeah, these 25 companies, I know someone at all 25, I'm going to make introductions. No. If we can get one on that list, but the only way they're going to be able to do that is by you giving them that list of those targets and those prospects, right? If they get two, boy, that's double. That's a bonus. So that's why I love to kind of create this tool as part of, again, my personal brand marketing, because it's complementary to the resume. But again, it's kind of, here's where I want to go with my brand. Here's where I want to take my brand. Here's where I want to deliver value. And it gives me kind of a roadmap as someone in your community, someone in your army, to say, this is perfect. I know someone at number 1 and number 6, and tomorrow I am going to reach out to them and I'm going to make a connection, and I'm going to do whatever I can to hopefully get you a foot in that door with this organization. So I think last but not least, just again, I just kind of developed these six areas that all tie into, again, what I call marketing your brand, being the CMO of your brand, right? Kind of define that brand vision. Just where do you want to take your brand? Create those SMART goals, right? Those specific and measurable and time-bound goals. Develop that story, your storytelling, your brand narrative, past, present, future, in a way that you can deliver it both today on a 15 to 20-second elevator pitch, as well as in a 1 to 2 hour interview or multiple interviews. Really delve into your own media channels. If before today you thought Facebook is fun and you thought LinkedIn's a place that I send invitations to people connect, they're so much more powerful than that. They are so much more powerful than that. And you really want to leverage your own media channels, which again, you own them. Nobody else owns them. You don't have to convince or persuade anyone to put content on those channels. Determine who those prospects are. You know, research, identify, and rank those prospects. In this case, I call them your customers. At the end of the day, they are your customers. They're potential customers, right? And then last but not least, that community of collaboration. All those people at the very end who I say there's a reason for hope, because those who have jobs want to help those who don't. Mobilize your army, mobilize your personal brand allies to go out and engage those potential customers of yours, to go make those phone calls, make those email introductions, help you get that foot in the door. And that is it. So thank you. Hopefully I didn't go over time. I'm sorry, I was on a roll there. But thank you very much for your time. I hope for even those who've heard me speak before that I gave some new insights, some new maybe inspiration in the way I presented today. So thank you. And I'll try to get out of this. I'll stop sharing here.
Well, thanks, Mark. There's a question that's come up, so we'll address that right now.
Sure.
So this one is from Alex. I 100% agree with you that job seekers must have something unique, singular, and different about themselves in order to be picked out from the crowd. Hiring managers need a reason to justify your pay, yet people in general are unable to come up with that uniqueness, the differentiators. How can we help them?
So Alex is saying, how can we help the job seekers with coming up with this? Yeah. So it's funny, Alex, and again, I know you do this all the time, so I'm not sharing probably much new with you, but just, when I go through the exercises with whether it's the folks who are about to graduate in May or someone who's been in the business 10, 15 years, I almost feel like, and you probably feel this too, Alex, I feel like I've got to press them a little bit, meaning I feel like every single one of us always puts our ego at the door, and we always kind of say, yeah, but that wasn't that big a deal. That wasn't that important. Oh, it was just me and my team. We did this or we did that. And I just feel like we always put that, and it's until I start kind of pressing them some more. I always use the example, which I didn't use today intentionally, Alex, because I knew you've heard it before, so I didn't want to bore you. But I always use the example of the student a year or two ago when I was doing mock interviews with students just a month before graduation. And on her resume, on the very, 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 very last line of her resume, that had a lot of great stuff on it in like 6-point font. It said that she won a national college marketing competition with Vans, the footwear company. And that, of all the things on the resume, that thing at the bottom in 6-point font was the only thing that actually caught my eye. The other things were all nice, but that's what caught my eye. And when we did the mock interviews, I say, oh, I see on your resume here, you won this national competition. You beat out 3,000 or 4,000 students for this van. Yeah, I didn't think it was that important. I said, but you're going to marketing. You want a job in marketing. And you think, yeah, well, it's just me. I want it. I said, well, I think that's part of it. I really do. I think part of it is, ego is the word I use, but I think part of it's just like, yeah, well, I did that. So how could that? No, I think we have to take inventory, Alex. I agree with you completely. I like to call it, we have to take inventory and audit everything we've kind of done in our careers. All of us, I think, probably forget more than we remember. Oh yeah, remember that campaign, remember that project, remember that program, remember how I helped that company drive greater efficiency, greater revenue, greater whatever. It's funny, I'm kind of going through this exercise now confidentially. I'm up for reappointment at Rutgers, and they put you through a pretty long process. And so over the last 4 weeks, I've had to think back to every single thing I've done at Rutgers over the last several years, and I have to document it. And believe it or not, I started going through our stuff, and I'm like, wow, yeah, I forgot I did that in 2018. I forgot I did that in 2019. This is all the stuff, though, they want to see and hear when they put you before kind of a review committee to decide if they're going to reappoint you or not. But I forgot more than I remembered. And so I had to dig deep and really press myself on some of those things. So I think it's a really good point. I just think that's why I know it may sound silly, guys, but it's great. It's great when you can take a moment, if you can take a moment, whenever that might be. Maybe it's early in the morning, maybe it's late at night, maybe it's on a Sunday afternoon, and just kind of put up a bunch of white, what I call like poster boards from Staples or somewhere, and just start jotting it all down. Just start writing it all down, to just start thinking about it. So great question, Alex.
Hey, Mark, the flip side of that, about this whole differentiation, this is how I look at it, and really what I tell people to think about is we're in a world where there's so much disruption coming, and there's so much change that's coming, that most people don't have the time or don't take the time, again, whichever term works best for you, to figure out how their skills really are going to help these companies going forward. And to me, one of the more impactful things you can do is, rather than in a sense recite history, which your skills are still important, but how have you aligned those skills to the changes or the disruption that they're facing? And I think that if you really want to blow somebody out of the water, say, yeah, you're trying to do this, here's the 15 things I've been reading about, here's how my skills apply, bam, you got them, right? Because you're helping them get where they know they've got to go.
So George he just bridged exactly that. He bridged his research to his brand and his brand value and what he can deliver to the brand, right? He did exactly that. So his research uncovered these 10, 12, 15 things that the CEO said, this is where we're going, this is what we need to do, this is what right in the next year or 2 or 3, and then bridged it back to his brand. So wait, I hit on 10 of those things, or 5 of those things, or 6 of those things. There's a marriage here. It's exactly, George, it's funny you say that. It's exactly what I would do. I would always look at what CMOs said about companies and say, we're going to do this, or we need to do this, or we have to be innovative here. And if they match with what I thought my agency could deliver, I would immediately say, okay, we've got a connection. We got to get to this CMO or CMO's team, because they seem to be looking for what I can deliver. So let's, but but the key there, George started, was research, right? Research. You don't just magically, it doesn't fall out of the sky that, oh, I see this, right? It's part of that ongoing research.
I call it intellectual curiosity or professional curiosity. And, I can't tell you how many people I meet that don't have it. And that's, to me, if there's one skill you have to learn, is you have to be professionally curious. Things are moving too quickly. I didn't have time. That excuse doesn't cut it anymore. It really doesn't.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of ways, to your point, George brings up a great point here. One, it's a mindset. That's the first thing. But like, give an example, and again, I know I took too much marketing here, but my world is just, we'll just call it marketing overall, advertising, marketing, social media, content, all those good things. So I have like 10 must reads every morning that I read before 9 a.m. every single morning. There are these daily, some I pay for, some are free, daily morning newsletters. Morning Consult, the first one I read every morning. Sports Business Journal is another one I read every morning. Ad Age and Ad Week every morning. But I read those every single morning. I don't stop reading them, but every morning I read their newsletters for the day to find out, okay, what happened in the industry yesterday, who made moves, who's doing what, who's doing this, who's doing that, because it goes to that curiosity. Because now I can start applying some of those things somehow, some way in my own world or my own search. So I think it's George, you hit it on the head there. And what I'm saying is just a tactic in that is my daily morning readings is just a tactic as part of that curiosity.
So getting back to what you're talking about, a lot of companies right now are looking at not only hard skills but soft skills, and within soft skills they're looking for creativity and innovation. What they've been able to find in doing the human factors analysis is that there's a paradigm called uncertainty avoidance. And that's basically how an individual has a proclivity to deal with uncertainty. And if you think about it with innovation, which is one of the things that really drives firm success today, and the big thing that you're dealing with in managing during that development time in innovation is uncertainty. So different people have different degrees internally inside them of uncertainty avoidance. And what some companies are starting to do is they're trying to even test individuals that they're considering as candidates for that level of uncertainty avoidance. So those that are very low in avoiding uncertainty, they make much better matches for jobs that require highly innovative conditions than those that are high in avoiding uncertainty. So, it's very important that we open up our mindset. We get over whatever paradigms or concerns that we have about innovation, digital technologies, etc., and start to embrace them, because it could actually start to hurt some of your chances to get involved in these new ways and new areas that the positions are evolving into.
I was just looking at the chat board here. Some folks are asking what was the name of the agency in San Francisco. Bospar, B-O-S-P-A-R. Bospar is primarily a marketing agency with a focus on all channels of marketing. But I think they're just probably one example of that. Another agency, again, in more pharmaceutical healthcare marketing right here in New Jersey, actually in Pennsylvania, is called Sam Brown. That's the agency I talked about that I spent quite a bit of time with the CEO this week. She launched her agency 20 years ago, well before virtual remote, and is going like gangbusters now. But again, her focus is more on pharmaceutical healthcare marketing, I'll call it. So just those. And then there's a question here, which I love. I love this question from Festus. What practical advice would you give to someone on how do you build a brand in a situation where you transition from paid employment to starting a business as an entrepreneur? I'm not sure, Festus, on this. First of all, there's a reason I love the question, because as some other folks here put, there's so many great stories of folks. I'll give one example real quickly, who've kind of gone from, traditional employment, we'll call it traditional working with a company and, all those good things. And then got to a certain life stage and maybe by choice or were forced to, they made the switch to maybe more of an entrepreneurial. I'm going to launch a company. I'm going to launch a business. I'm going to take that passion I've had for many, many years and I'm going to launch it. Real quick example, a good friend of mine is a former state trooper, retired when he had to retire, but in his last few years as a state trooper, well, his whole life, he'd always had a passion for fitness. He competed in running events and cycling events and swimming events. And while he was a trooper, he actually was part of, I guess we call it basic training, where he was kind of one of the guys who was one of the fitness instructors while a trooper, putting the new candidates through the paces, so to speak. So that was his passion. And now, having to retire at, I think, 50, he's now 61 or 62. He turned that passion into, as you say, a business, an entrepreneurial opportunity. And he said, I'm going to launch my own fitness company. And I'm going to start with one client and see where it goes. And 12 years later, he's got clients who are individuals. He's got clients like Jersey Mike's, the company, who has them come in 3 days a week. He's got clients who are high schools and colleges. And he markets it constantly through his own media channels. He's constantly sharing, hey, look at the great success story of this, my client, John or Joe or Judy or whoever, right? Or look at this great initiative that Jersey Mike's has me working on about, corporate wellness, corporate fitness, whatever it might be. So again, he's yes, is he promoting himself? Is he promoting his brand? He is, but he's using the success of his clients to amplify his story and remind people, oh, that's right. Tom's a personal trainer. He's got his personal training company. You know what? I know someone who could use him, or I know a school or a team or a group that should hire him. So I know that's maybe a completely different example than the type of business you're getting into, but it's just, to me, it's someone who went from being a state trooper, forced to retire, launched his own company around a passion fitness, and now 12 years later is going like gangbusters. In fact, tomorrow morning on the beach in Spring Lake, every Sunday morning, he puts on a 1-hour boot camp at 8 a.m. on the beach year round. Rain, sleet, snow, it doesn't matter. But he does it all as a volunteering effort on his part. And he collects a few dollars from everybody, and all the money goes to a great organization called Troops Helping Troops, a nonprofit here in New Jersey, where it's troopers helping military veterans. And again, every Sunday at probably 10 a.m., there'll be a photo or a video that he'll put out on his own media channels. Hey, this morning's group of 20 was great. They did this, they did that. But again, it's a reminder. That's right. Tom does that. He does this. He's contributing. He's helping charities. He's doing all this. Maybe for the holidays here, I'll go buy, 10 personal training sessions from him for my, I don't know, for my friend, for my spouse, for this or that. So it's a way he's marketing without just talking about I'm the greatest trainer in the world and, hire me.
There's another question from Mike. How do you get companies to focus on your experience instead of a perceived need for degrees?
Well, I'll tell it from my perspective, and maybe George and maybe others will want to weigh in. When I was in a position, and again, I was in a position where I owned an agency in New York that went from being a 5-6 person agency to be about 125, 150 person agency. Went from having clients who were no-name clients to clients who were Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, and others. And I will tell you, I'll tell you, Mike, this is just me, because I'm sure it's a completely different industry and the rules are different, but I never looked at anyone's degrees. I looked at only their experience. Unless they came from Rutgers, maybe. But I never looked at anyone's degrees. In my business, marketing, advertising, public relations, social media, and content, I hate to say it, and I probably shouldn't say it on this call because it's being recorded, but to me, it's all about what experience you bring to the table. What internships have you had? What jobs have you had? What experience? That's the only thing I look at. When a student gives me their resume, they put their GPA on there. It's like, no one cares about your GPA. Get it off. There's no reason to have a. It's all about experience. Again, this is just me, so this is a one person focus group here. But I always, again, other industries are obviously completely different. But at least in my world of, we'll just call it the greater world of marketing, it always just came down to experience. I can remember a story. I still remember, in fact, I know where she is today. She's now a bigwig at some company, but I remember when she got out of college and was looking for a job. And she walked into my office, handed me a resume, and all I saw was that throughout college she had not one, not two, not three, not four, but like 7 internships. I don't even think I interviewed her. I said, "You're hired." I walked her down. I said, "Guys, we've never seen a candidate like this. Please meet her." Within an hour, she walked out of there with a job and ready to go, all because of the experience. I don't even remember what school she went to or what degree she had, but that experience was so impressive as, again, a 22-year-old who got experience as a 19, 20, 21-year-old. I know it's different circumstances, but that's actually all I ever look at. It's just people's experience.
I would break Mike's question up into chunks. I think clearly those industries where you need a degree, i.e. medical, i.e. you need a specialty degree, that is what it is, right? Okay, fine. I think the next part is if you look at IBM's, Facebook, Microsoft, many of them have now even waived the college degree requirement simply because they can't wait 4 years for you to get out. They need the skill sets today, not tomorrow. I think the third piece gets into those industries that there is a certification that really has made it a requirement, like a PMP certification as an example. So I would say even if you were going to go into something like cloud, having at least the certifications in some instances are more important than having the degree. So I think what we're seeing is thematically in the industry, we're starting to see this change because, okay, and in what space, Mike? But or is this a cloud thing or? Okay, so to me, you just need to just tighten up your storyline, or because if you have the certs and you're in the cyberspace, you should be able to find something relatively quickly, simply because cyber is a big deal, right? There's not enough people in that space. So I would just say that if you've got the certs, it's now a matter of marketing.
I'm just going to build on. I see another question here, David. From Dave, I guess not a question, just a comment from David. Mark's point about utilizing social media to build your brand. Make a point to scroll through my LinkedIn feed. Like, I agree. David, I'm the same way. Again, it goes back to a point I made earlier, and I'm not sure if we're all this way, maybe not. But I used to spend 4 or 5 hours on a bus commuting to New York back and forth on a good day. On a good day, some days it was 6 or 7. I now have all that time. I've got all that time. I'm not commuting to teach at Rutgers. I've got all that time. So I'm spending a lot more time on places like LinkedIn. To your point, David, I'm liking a lot more. I'm commenting a lot more. I'm engaging a lot more. Definitely sharing a heck of a lot more content. In fact, Frank's probably sick of all the content I share. But I guess the point what you're saying, and I agree. It's a word I haven't used yet today, which I just said, engaging. It's just engaging more, putting yourself out there in different ways, as you said, reactive, responding, liking, commenting, but also sharing content, creating content, producing content. To me, it's just, you're more active, you're more out there, you're more visible, you're more seen, all those kinds of things. I'm a big believer.
What I would suggest, Mark, and again, people don't necessarily do this on a regular basis. I would tell you to start, this is the proverbial start small and then go big. You want to really keep working this back to what are you trying to accomplish on that interview? So, I'll use myself as the example, right? So I don't even know what week this is going to be, week 31. So 31 weeks ago, I started doing a weekly, and I see Nancy smiling. I started doing a weekly webinar on a Sunday. To me, it was a simple give back. Here I am now, 31 weeks later, and I have 31 weeks of content that not only can I go back and repurpose the content, but I can now show somebody, here's what I learned. It's about video. I've improved a new skill. I've done all of these things that I can make a tangible impact to you. So just liking and commenting, once you get yourself established, I think becomes step 2. Step number 1 is, what are you really trying to do as part of your marketing plan at the interview that you can leverage? And to me, it always gets back to a storyline. If you have a storyline and you are constantly, like, let's go to what Mike's about cyber. To me, I would be so laser focused on getting cyber with what was the big hack that just happened with they think the Russians hacked into some, it was just last week, whatever the heck it was, right? And they stole all of their precious tools. To me, that would be, which one was that?
FireEye.
FireEye, thank you, right. So I'd be all over that FireEye thing and saying, okay, now that I understand what the FireEye hack meant, here's how I'm knowledgeable about the tools. Here's the insight as to what I would start thinking about to protect the company. Here's how I would react post event. Suddenly, you're taking your expertise, you've funneled it into a singular message, because I'm sure there's a bunch of people saying, "Yeah, crap, what the hell do we do now?" Right? So to me, that's really taking. Now, once you start getting the notoriety, then you can spread out and start commenting and engaging with those next communities. But to me, it's get your story, start that laser focus, leverage it for your interviewing, and then start going broader.
Frank, if you're still on the line, I see a question here. Can you make a clear distinction between experience, expertise, and skills? Do you want to take that on?
Sure. Basically, experience would be all the different things that you've learned along the way that are pertinent to what the employer is seeking. Those are normally presented in a way that is in the format of PARs that will show not only, the problem that you took on, but how you approached it and what were the results that you achieved. Expertise is normally like a summary that you have certain things like a competency, like project management, that you have cloud knowledge, etc., and can demonstrate that proficiency. And what was the third one, Mark?
Skills.
Skills, again, are more tangible. If you look at your LinkedIn profile, you'll see there's a myriad of skills that you could profess to have. One thing that's very important is the skills that you choose to represent as part of your brand can also cut both ways. So if I'm talking about being a leading edge programmer and I'm listing skills like COBOL, that may detract from my brand. But if I have Java, Python, and all of those things that are really leading edge that an employer is looking at my skills, again, that brands me differently. And one of the things that people happen to do within their LinkedIn profiles is you work so hard to put the skills out there and over time have others, go out and endorse those skills. But you've got to make sure that, number one, the skill, even if it has a lot of endorsements, is it consistent with the brand and the image that you're trying to portray? Because if it isn't, it could be a detractor and should be removed. I've constantly seen people agonize off of removing skills that have high amounts of endorsements on them. The other thing about skills is, when these recruiters go in and they look at your LinkedIn profile, they not only see your skills and recommendations, but they see the dates that you were last endorsed or recommended. It's very critical that you think about this in your profile around skills, recommendations, and even your education section. If you're showing education and nothing's changed in 20, 25 years, shame on you. There's got to be something that you've done and completed that can be added into that education section that will help with your brand. It's the same things with the skills and the recommendation. Some people will say, I have recommendations out there. But then when you go to look, the last one was 2005. Really? In 15 years, you're going to tell me you can reach out to an employer or a boss or a coworker and have them write up a recommendation for you? And the best way to get those contents visible on your profile is by doing that for others. So if you go out and you start writing recommendations, you start endorsing the skill sets of previous coworkers, previous bosses, people that were on your teams, they're going to turn around and they're going to do it right back for you. So make sure that you're very active in representing that. And again, it all comes back to what Mark was talking about today. That's part of your brand. And you've got to show that your brand is fresh, right? You're not going to buy a product that's been sitting on the shelf for 10 years. You're going to want to buy a product that you know was out there and, you know, most recently somebody used it and had a positive experience with it.
I think that's great. I think that's great. Just a point, Alex makes a really good point here. I just want to clarify. He talks about, researching, identifying your prospects, and I'm completely aligned with Alex. You may research 15, 20, 25. That's fine. Research is good. We all, research is the foundation for everything we do. But then, as Alex puts here, you tier them. So to his point, as I mentioned, what are those top 3 or 4 or 5? Because that's where you're going to put all your effort and your focus and prioritize and really dive deep. You may have a second 5, you may have a third 5, you may have a fourth 5. Those are all fine. Some of those may move up the ladder. Maybe you hit a dead end with one of those top 5, or you actually get a no from one of those top 5. Okay, so number 6 now is falling into my top 5. So just a point there that Alex brought up, I just wanted to reaffirm that, yeah, you may research and identify 20 plus, but you want to prioritize those, again, those top 3, those top 4, those top 5, because that's where you're going to mobilize your army to help you get a foot in the door.
And to build on what Mark's saying, let's say one of your big skills is leadership. You then break that leadership down, motivating others, team building, all the things that would support why you are a good leader, if that leadership is one of the prime things that you're trying to showcase.
David, any next steps?
So, no, Mark, this was really terrific, really thorough. So thank you so much. Another wonderful presentation. And as always, we're so glad that you're a friend and a part of the Breakfast Club of New Jersey. And what we want to do, want to let you know as we wrap up, we're going to leave this session open in just a couple of minutes. It's going to be open networking. We're going to turn the recording off. So if, Mark, you want to make that comment that you couldn't make earlier, you want to hang around, that's fine. By the way, I could have edited it out. But we will leave it open. For anyone that wants to download the chat, whether now or the chat during the open networking, when you use your GoToMeeting app in the upper left corner, there's an icon, or a logo, I should say, a logo for GoToMeeting, kind of an asterisk with the word GoToMeeting, and that's a menu. You can drop that down, and the third menu item is Save Chat Log. I will also save the chat log later and send it to Adrienne, so it'll be available as she sees fit. And also want to remind everybody, next month we will be back, and as Frank said, we will continue to be virtual for the foreseeable future. Our meeting next month is going to be obviously after the new year on January 9th at 8 o'clock in the morning. And our good friend George Pace, who we met a little bit on this program, George will be talking about how to keep pace, what a wonderful name he has, how to keep pace in a post-COVID world. So always looking forward to George's programs. They're well thought out, well researched. So I think you'll enjoy those. Hope you can join us then. George also has his Facebook Live webinar each Sunday, facebook.com/keeppace, facebook.com/keeppace. So you're always welcome to visit and join George for those. So just as we get ready to wrap up, Frank, do you have any parting comments for us?
I just wanted to thank Mark and everybody who joined today. Great presentation and good interaction. We do our best to keep everything going to help everybody, but use the social media channels. Go out there, join the LinkedIn group, grow your network, connect to all the other people in the Breakfast Club New Jersey LinkedIn group. On the Facebook group, reach out to others. Use our new vehicle, groups.io, to post jobs. This is the time of year where everybody talks about Giving Tuesdays. If you have a job that the hiring manager for, post it out there to the Breakfast Club and help our fellow members that are in transition land at this time of year. You couldn't give them a better present. So please, avail yourself of all of the services that are out there available to you. Take your elevator pitch, reduce it to writing, post it out there, make sure you're asking for help at targeted companies. I think Benny Racine has broken the record since we started Groups.io on how many jobs he's posted in a very short period of time. So, really help the others in the group, and it'll come back to you in many, many ways. So I hope everybody has a very safe holiday season. If you go on to LinkedIn, Rod Colon is an expert on how to really make the use of the holidays for networking for job search. He posted a great video out there, as he does every year. I would highly recommend going out and listening to that, and then go to Alex Schroin's site, landingexpert.com, look at all the different networking groups there are, see if any of are applicable, to your circumstance, and, attend as many of these networking meetings as you can. A significant part of your time in transition should be networking. And whenever you do meet with someone for a networking session, always try and walk away with 2 more people to meet, that they're referring you to. And that is a true recipe for success. So my best of luck for everybody. I hope you have a great holiday season, and also, for a very good new year. With that, I'll pass it back to David.
Great. Thank you very much, Frank. Thank you, of course, for everyone for joining us today. So we are now officially ending the meeting, and we'll say so long, everybody. Hope to see you all very soon, virtually, even if not sooner, by our meeting next month. So everyone have a happy holiday season and a happy new year.